Hour number 3, Chasing Big Joe, 102.5. The Game on this Tuesday, live at La Madeleine in Mount Juliet, their grand opening today. And appreciate them for having us. We had John McClain on yesterday, but later in the afternoon we got the sad news that longtime Titans assistant, Titans radio color analyst, and former Arizona Cardinals head coach Coach Mac McGinnis had passed away at the age of 74, and John reached out and wanted to come back on to tell some Coach Mac stories because knew him for a long time. So, John, thanks once again for joining us.
It's my pleasure, guys. I hate for it to be such sad circumstances. I knew Dave for over 30 years, and one of the many things I miss about him is when the Titans would play here, and he would come in with the radio crew into the booth, the visiting booth at NRG Stadium. He would come down, knowing I'd get there 3 hours early, and sit down in the seat next to me, and we just BS for about 30 minutes. And I miss those times greatly, as many people who knew Dave will miss times with him. And the way I met him, I knew he was from Snyder, Texas, which is out in West Texas, and he played at TCU in Fort Worth. I read a story about him where he was assistant with the Bears. And he came to the Bears the year after Jeff Fisher left to go with Buddy Ryan. And it was Dave's first Bears team that set the all-time record for fewest points allowed under Vince Tolman, Buddy Ryan's replacement. A lot of people thought, well, it was the 85 Bears who were one of the greatest teams in history with the greatest defense. But no, it was the next year. And I read that he liked to eat Mexican food and drink Diet Dr. Pepper. Well, when I saw him at the Combine, I introduced myself, told him I was from Waco, I covered the Oilers, and I love Mexican food and Diet Dr. Pepper. So I knew then we had a beer that Dave, even though he wasn't coaching in Texas, in his whole career, he never came back here to coach, but he loved talking about his home state, and I had a lot of Mexican food and Diet Dr. Pepper with him. And when he became the Cardinals head coach, and I was covering the NFL at the time, my first city that I tried to find ways to come to, of course, was Nashville, because I had so many friends there, starting with Jeff Fisher and Floyd Reese, and I loved Nashville, met so many cool people. But I also wanted to go to Arizona to hang out with Dave, because he had a couple of holes in the wall downtown in a barrio where you could eat Mexican food and drink Diet Dr. Pepper, but he'd have to bring his own Diet Dr. Pepper because they hadn't heard of it. And he took me one place one time where the menu was in Spanish on a chalkboard, and he brought Luis Zendejas, the cousin of Tony Zendejas, the Oilers kicker, and to him to translate for us. And so I had a lot of really good times when he was the head coach, and they signed him at Smith. I got to go up, spend time, as he always called it, going up the mountain to northern Arizona, where it was, because the high altitude was such great weather. And after he got fired as the Cardinals head coach in 2003, I was talking to him, and he said he's going to take a year off and do TV. And I said, well, you'll be great, because as you guys know, Dave had a great personality. He's one of the funniest people I ever knew, and I never knew anybody that didn't like Dave McGinnis, great storyteller. So I was talking to Jeff Fisher at the Senior Bowl, and Jeff needed a linebackers coach. And I said, well, would Dave McGinnis be a possibility? And he said he talked to him. I think he said he talked to him, or somebody told him Dave's taking a year off to do TV and radio. So I called Dave. He was at the Senior Bowl, and he told me that's what he's going to do. And I said, Dave, I said, if you have a chance to go to the Titans, you can't pass it up. Jeff Fisher is a great coach. He's a great guy. He lets you be yourself. You and him would get along great. You'd love the city. Kim would love the city, the people. There's just no negatives if you get a chance to take that job. And I said, you owe it to yourself and Kim to at least talk to Jeff and give him a chance to see if he wants to offer you the job. And so Dave was kind of, yeah, I will. Next thing I know, I read a release that the Titans had hired him as linebackers coach, and I think assistant head coach. And that worked out great because he and Fisher became great friends. He went, of course, with Jeff to L.A., and he did a tremendous job as the coach. And then when he became part of the broadcast crew, I knew he was going to be tremendous just because he was so knowledgeable about the game and loved so much what he was doing. I don't know if I knew anybody liked what he was doing, no matter what he was doing, more than Dave McGinnis. And he loved Fisher, and he liked telling stories about Jeff, and he fish this, fish that. So I know condolences to Dave's family, but also Jeff Fisher and all the people up there who knew him, worked with him, listened to him, because he had touched the lives of a lot of people, and he got so much respect and positivity when Pat Tillman was killed, and everybody wanted to talk to Dave, and he was almost like he's part of the Tillman family. I couldn't think of anybody better to represent Tillman and his family at so many events, and people had a newfound respect for Dave McGinnis, including learning more about who he was, because he was so good talking about Pat Tillman. So when he took Frank Wycheck's place, I was so glad he got to go back to Nashville, because he always loved Nashville, and everywhere he went, Coach Mack, everybody wanted to talk to him. He didn't know a stranger, and he loved Nashville and Tennessee and the Mid-South, everything about it, and it's just such a loss for so many people.
John, can you explain what happened with Coach McGinnis and the Bears? He was named head coach, but he wasn't head coach. I mean, you knew that story better than I did. What happened?
He interviewed because he was there, I think, 9 years, and he was really popular and he was real good, and so he went to be an assistant coach with the Cardinals, and he interviewed with McCaskey, Ed McCaskey was their chairman and the grandson of George Alice. And Ed McCaskey was not known as being the smoothest owner around, even though his mama owned it. And so Dave interviewed. Dave told me, he told other people too. He was in a car, and I don't know if he was driving himself back to the airport or it was a cab or a limo. Knowing the Bears is probably a cab. But he was listening to a talk show, and they announced there was going to be a press conference to announce Dave McGinnis as a head coach. Well, he hadn't totally signed off on it, and because they hadn't agreed to terms on the contract. And he's hearing that. Well, you know what? The Bidwells hadn't been informed. The Bears hadn't been informed. Vince Tobin, the head coach, hadn't been informed. And so it was, I think most people would have gone, okay, I'll do it, or call their agent if the agent said take the money. But he turned them down, not knowing if he would ever get another chance to be a head coach in the NFL. And that just showed you what kind of integrity he had, because he had never been a head coach in the NFL. He didn't know he was going to get to be one 2 years later, the next year in Arizona. And he turned down the Bears, where he'd had some of his greatest moments, and he was immensely popular. But he never, as far as I knew, he never regretted it, because Dave had integrity. And the way he looked at it, the Bears didn't. And, of course, he got to be Arizona's head coach a year later when he replaced Vince Tobin. But that said so much about Dave McGinnis, the man.
John, we appreciate you taking the extra time to join us again to talk about Coach Mack because, obviously it's been a tough, few days now or since yesterday afternoon learning of his passing. But thanks so much for joining us again and telling us some great stories.
I hope that the Titans, if their new broadcast booth and their new stadium that Amy Adams sprung, will name it the Dave McGinnis broadcast booth.
I think I have a feeling there's going to be something. I don't know what it'll be, but I have a feeling she'll do something, and I agree with you. So
Guys,
thanks again.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. John McClain joining us from Houston to talk a little Coach Mack. We'll come back with more here on 102.5 The Game.